Welcome to the RAG Podcast, the weekly show where I interview recruitment owners who are prepared to tell their unique story of growth. This is all in aid of helping future and existing recruitment businesses who are looking to do similar things. Now, growth means different things to different people. So by tuning in every week, you're no doubt going to find information that's relevant to you. On this week's episode of the RAG Podcast, I'm joined by Dan Grim. Dan is the founder of Inside Recruitment, a 11-month-old search-to-search, rec-to-rec business. He's based in the UK, he's completely standalone, but Dan's got an incredibly decorated past. He's been in the industry since 1998. He has been the third partner in a business twice. The first time he managed to get a third of the shareholding and went through an exit, which enabled him to move back to the UK and take some time out. And then he's gone and worked as the third partner in another few businesses since. He's set up a business now, operating on his own, to help recruitment companies, founding relationships, find their leadership teams. And often the first kind of general manager, managing director type person that allows the founders the freedom to step away, focus on what they're good at, and have someone focusing on the business or in the business. Dan can articulate why most recruitment companies can't attract A players, why they can't find an MD, why even if they find one, they're not going to work for them. And he can articulate what these people are looking for too. Now, if you're someone who's in a co-founding relationship or you're on your own and you think you're going to need someone in a leadership capacity to take you to the next level, then you want to listen to what Dan's got to say. Let's get into it. Without further ado, Dan, welcome to the RAG Podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Nice to be here.
I know you made it. How long did it take you?
I left at 11. It's about 4 hours it took me from Worthing, which is a 2-hour journey, but eventually here. So.
And what happened? Someone on the lines or something?
Someone on the line, I think it was Peckham Rye. And then I just panicked a bit. In the end, a taxi. So
you made it.
I'm here. So yeah, pleased to be here.
Well, look, we only actually met quite recently, wasn't it? About a month or so ago when we first connected.
Very recently. Recently.
And I felt like, I don't know, we had a really good chat. Obviously, we know a lot of the same people, and your story was incredibly inspiring and familiar to some of the other people I've known. So I was really excited to get you on the show. I've done a really basic introduction. So before we get into the story, just give us the overview of who you are today, what you do, and then we'll go back.
Yeah, sure. My name is Dan Grim. I am the founder and director of Inside Recruitment, which is a executive search-to-search, rec-to-rec business that I started just under a year ago. And it's been a really exciting journey for me over the last sort of 11, 12 months to market research. What is it that I was looking for when I was running a recruitment business? What is it that isn't available from some of the younger consultants that you work with in those rec-to-recs? And having done those kind of 10,000 hours, I'm finding a niche now, which is super exciting around sort of helping founders grow leadership teams, which is kind of really exciting for me. Where I can use the experience that I've got, but also kind of navigate some of the external things that you don't know unless you've lived some of that growth as well.
Yeah. So this is, like you say, this is a new business, relatively new.
It's a new business, yeah.
But it's not your first rodeo, right? You've been through a lot of different things. So you've got a decorated past. Really, your main recruitment company was called The Recruitment Company, right?
Correct.
And what year was that you launched it?
I didn't launch it.
Right.
So that was started, I think it was in 2000 in Sydney.
Right.
It was started by, it was a group of brokers who was spending like £500,000 in fees sometimes when they were sort of hiring these brokers. They were sort of an international organisation.
What kind of brokers?
Foreign currency brokers. I think it was mainly foreign currency brokers. And they had offices in London, New York, Singapore, Dubai, Australia. And they set up a recruitment business just so they could recruit for their own business. And they invested huge amounts of money in leadership, in offices, in all these locations. I think 5 years later, the only one that survived was the Australian business.
Right.
And that was being run by two guys that one of them I used to work with in Australia. My wife used to work for this business as well. That's another story.
Right.
And I had returned to the UK to get married. I'd been home 3 months and decided there's no way I can live in the UK. And I was planning to come back to Australia after I got married. And I got an email from Simon. Simon was one of the directors saying, look, we're looking for a GM.
Yeah.
We want you to interview. So I went through the process, and I got the job with Craig and Simon, were the directors, but only had a small shareholding in the business at that time. It was doing reasonably well. It was in technology, maybe 7 or 8 staff they had at that time. And I secured the role when I was back in the UK, and then en route to Australia after actually getting married. I started as the GM, and that's where I started for the recruitment company. Although I changed it to TRC Group and bought the domain for $5,000 because it was just so much easier. Right. But after I've left, Simon's changed it back to.
So let's go back a bit further then. So how many years were you in recruitment before that gig?
Quite a few. So I started in recruitment in '98. Right. Finished in university. Was unsure what I was going to do. I was sending out my CVs on yellow paper because I was told it would make an impression. Wow. A few months later, nothing happened. I saw an advert in the paper for AMH Contract Services, and I got an interview. There was no websites back then. No. And I sent off to company's house for a prospectus, and it said that they hired electricians and plumbers, labourers and bricklayers for, sort of like a week or 2 weeks. I went to the interview. He asked if I knew what they did. I did. And 2 weeks later, I was starting. I went to London for 2 weeks training with a London office.
Where were you based?
I was based in Brighton.
Brighton.
Yeah. So I started there for AMH, and I was doing electricians and plumbers. Wow. I had no computer. All I had this file of facts and the yellow pages, classic. And that's how I started.
Were you good at it? Took to it?
I did. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was literally 50 to 100 phone calls a day. My dad was an electrician, actually. So he knew some of the electricians that kind of come in. And it was just, if you worked hard, I could talk to these people easily. Like I enjoyed having conversations with them. It was just a numbers game.
Yeah.
Just be honest with them. But the other side of the business was labourers and bricklayers.
And that was a bit more.
And sometimes you'd have to send 20 and hopefully forward turn up. But it was a rough and ready kind of business, to be honest with you. But it was a great training ground to kind of learn how to pick up the phone, how to build relationships, and how to pipeline as well. Yeah, it was. There's no formal training.
So how many jobs did you have before from that to the TRC?
So I had that job. Then I went to Australia. So I was in a pub with a friend of mine, and he was on the phone to Derek Blackier, who was the owner of Gap, and he just passed me the phone. I just got chatting to him, and before I knew it, I was on the plane to Australia, one-way ticket to Sydney.
Were you single at the time, then?
Yeah. I went there, so I landed in Sydney. I worked for Gap IT. The market was booming in 2000. It was a great market. We had
after the .com bubble or whatever it was.
That was still going on. We had the Olympics in the
Millennium Bug
in the September. So it was a fantastic time, and I did RDBMS, Oracle, Sybase, etc. I smashed it, and I was there 12 months, and by the end of the period of time, I was 2IC in the company. Thought I could take on the world.
Cool city. I was there last week when I was.
Oh, you were.
It was raining all week, but it's still beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing. So that first year was lots of fun, and I was like, do you know what? I can do this myself. And when you put something out there, a client I was working with, he liked what I did. He put me onto someone called Michael Quinn, and we formed the Quinn Group.
Right.
Me and my flatmate. He put the money in. It was called QBG Consulting. It was originally QBG IT, but once we did all the website, it was QBG Git. So we had to change it to QBG Consult. It was me, it was my mate Clive, who I worked with, and it was a startup, and then the market tanked in 2001. It was tough. It was such a great learning experience for me to kind of learn all those things you think around. Desk costs don't cost anything. No. Oh, they're making so much money. And then you happen to sort of say there's rent. Okay, there's operation bills, there's databases, there's advertising. You start to understand all those costs that. So it was an amazing experience, a lot of hard work. Kind of made all those classic mistakes that I think most people make when they start. But quite quickly, I kind of realised that my business partner, wasn't the right person for me to scale the company with. So I was waiting for my PR to come through. And as soon as my PR came through...
Permanent residency, if people don't know what that means.
Sorry, yeah. My permanent residency in Australia that I got through my wife.
Yeah. Is she Australian, you are?
No. But she applied for it because we've been living
Right.
together for 12 months.
Yeah.
I was able to get it on the back of her.
De facto.
De facto. And as soon as it came through, I walked in the next day and I was like, I'm off. And I resigned. And everyone's kind of like...
The thing about PR, for people who don't know as well, is like I was on a 457 when I was there.
Yeah.
And you're tied to a company on a
You
457. Whereas PR gives you the flexibility to go and get a new job or do different things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So I thought, maybe I'll do something else. And so I went to work for a water company selling water bottles just for a really short time, left field. And I think it was the first time I tried to leave recruitment and I realised that no one else outside of recruitment values what it is we do.
Yeah.
And no one else will pay you the money that you earn.
No.
So that became quite apparent. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're not.
And sort of fast track 3 or 4 months, I was still living the life of a recruiter earning absolutely nothing. I'd racked up tons of debt. My brother actually had met his now wife a year later than I had, and he'd got engaged.
Yeah.
And Emma was like,
What are you doing?
what's going on with us? I'm not working. And she's like, and that kind of really made me, okay, right, we had a big argument. She's like, you got to sort this out. And this is what I love about recruitment. I said, just give me a couple of weeks. And within 2 weeks, I started at Graythorne,
Yeah.
which was bought by the 510 Group, really well-established business. IT contracting, data warehousing, business intelligence, my area. I knew it, greenfield site for them. And I absolutely smashed it. And within sort of 18 months, I'd cleared my debts. I got engaged, bought a great ring. We got all the money together for the wedding.
Yeah.
We planned a trip after I'd left Graythorne to travel Australia for 2 months, which was fantastic. To come home.
So you were leaving Graythorne to move back to the UK?
Yeah.
Is that when you did the 3 month and went back?
Yeah. So that's when I thought, you know what?
What was the reality of being in the UK that you didn't want to be at the time?
Do you know what's really interesting? You come home when you live in Australia, and when you come home for a holiday, everyone is so excited to see you. They're like,
Yeah.
Everyone's or your mates. So when I first came home, my mates turned up in a minibus to meet me from Heathrow. It was like, I felt like a star. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you move home, all of a sudden it's like, well, you're here. That's it. You're here now. We're like,
later.
oh. And after 3 months,
They don't really care about your stories either. They don't really want to know, a lot of them. I had that when I came back.
Did you?
I remember coming back for Christmas and there was a lot of, we'll meet you. But then I remember I was telling this story about like a night out in Cambodia or something. And then my mate just interjected and was like, Ando, I've got a new dog. And he just cut my whole story off to tell me you got a new dog. And I was just like, nothing's changed here at all. And I remember that moment, I was like, I want to go back to Australia. Like, I was already going back, but I was like, I want to go now. But then when I got to Australia, I realised for me, in 2012, that didn't feel right either. Melbourne,
Really?
I was just like, I was 24, single.
So why Melbourne?
Cheapest place I could get a ticket to.
Okay, interesting.
Didn't know anything.
Okay.
I was a teacher, landed, got a recruitment job, and then stayed. And I wish I'd have gone to Sydney or Brisbane or something where you've actually got a bit more of the weather and the beach. And Melbourne was the wrong place for me. But it never felt home. I used to call it the best party I wasn't invited to. So I'd watch, like, you go to the Richmond Club Hotel on a Sunday and you'd see, like, AFL would be on and there'd be, like, all these people around a table and beautiful women and great-looking guys all having fun. I'd be like, I'm there with my 3 mates. We'd just be like, we're not invited here. Like, it doesn't feel like we're part of it.
No, I get that.
I wasn't there maybe long enough to break into any of those. We didn't really meet many Aussies. I had, like, one good Aussie mate. The rest were all English.
Yeah, I think my advice to someone ever that moves overseas is that the first year's the hardest.
Yeah.
Make sure that you have a trip home.
Yeah.
Because you look at it through rose-tinted glasses. You think, mum's roast dinner, all my mates are going to be there. Yeah. It's kind of not like that. So when you come home, it dispels some of those myths. But the best thing I ever did in Australia was I joined a football team, Mossman. Yeah. Shout out to Mossman.
Yeah. My mate got married in Mossman.
Did he?
Yeah. Last time I was there 8.5 years ago on the water. It was beautiful.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. And we trained on a Wednesday and we played on a Saturday. And afterwards, you'll have like a bit of a barbie, few beers.
And you had a group then?
And then I got friends. And that's what helped me settle. And I'm still in touch with the majority of those guys now.
Yeah.
There was everyone, there was English, there was Welsh, there was Irish, there was Australian, New Zealand. And we went from the 7th division to the 2nd.
Wow.
And it was, honestly, it's where I made friends.
Yeah,
and that's what helped me settle. And that's honestly my advice to people, is take the first year is that, see it as a holiday. It's not forever, because it's too hard for you to comprehend that you're not going to go home again.
Yeah.
See the first year as a holiday. If you like it, you stay another year, and then join a club, join a team, whatever it is that you do, whatever your passion hobby is, join that, because you get to meet locals, you get to meet people. And that was
we never did that. I did a bit of training with South Yarra in Melbourne.
Okay.
And again, it just didn't. I don't know what it was. It just didn't click. Like, I'd been playing all my life, but I didn't give it a good enough of a go, I don't think.
That's it, honestly. That would have made a massive difference. Plus Sydney. Yeah. Sydney's fantastic. There's beaches. I lived in Manly when I first went there.
Yeah.
And it was just great to, like, your parents can come out. Like, my brother came out and lived with me for a couple of years, which was fantastic. And my sister came out. Both my other brother came out, and friends, and it was a special time, actually.
So while all this is happening,
yeah, this
is the TRC, right?
No, sorry. This is when I was at
Greythorn.
This was the first part,
right?
When I was at Greythorn. We went home in 2005. We didn't settle. We stayed until we got married, and then we came back in 2006, back to Sydney. And I just settled back straight.
Was it like you landed and the weather's better?
It was a breeze. We got a place in Neutral Bay, just by the Oaks. Straight back to the football team. All my mates were there. My wife had a great network of friends. She's straight back in there, and that's when I started with the recruitment company, or TRC.
Yeah.
With Simon and Craig. I started sort of.
So there's like 8 people, you said, or 7 or 8 people.
Yeah, about 7, 8 people. But it was a good business. Like, they had some decent contractors. They had a good contractor base. They just hired a new financial controller, Laura, who's actually still there.
Yeah.
And it was just a great opportunity where you got 2 guys that were they were fantastic recruiters, both of them, really good recruiters. But they kind of were aware enough that their strengths weren't people. And I'd worked.
I feel like I have this chat on every podcast these days. It's like that you are into people or you're not, and it's about being aware. Probably being aware of that.
Yeah, I think it's being aware of it. So initially they were. So for the first 6 months, I would go in there and I was doing everything. We sort of redid the website. We redid all the hiring. We redid how the targets were done, how the commission was.
You came in as an MD type role, yeah.
My title was GM, but essentially it was.
But you were running the business, basically.
It was. I was running the business day to day, and I was sort of. The first 6 months, I was like, they're going to sack me. I'm like this sometimes. I'm like,
because you're not making enough
money.
It
just keeps me on my toes a little bit. And we were flying back to the UK. My wife was pregnant. We hadn't told my family. We were going to surprise them. And I said to my wife on the plane, and I said, they're going to sack me. They're going to find out I've done a terrible job, or I'm not doing what I should be doing. And they would give me really good feedback. I'm like in my head. And she said, okay, I wasn't going to tell you this, but they've just given us £2,000 to go to a top hotel or a top restaurant in London to say what an amazing job you've done. Now, will you just shut up?
Wow.
And get over your way.
So is this your own inner critic?
Yeah,
that you've probably always had.
I've always had it.
I think I've got a bit of that though. Like, you're your own worst enemy.
100%.
Yeah, and I think all of my success is about running away from failure. Like, I don't think I ever really get that excited about what I could achieve. It's what I don't fucking want to go back to. And it's always like a slightly negative slant on my success, which is just something I'm built with. And now I'm kind of leaning into it as probably just who I am rather than.
It's tiring though.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's tiring. Like, I would be up, but some of my greatest ideas would come at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I'd get excited and I'd go into work like, wait, I've got this idea. So the first 6 months was sort of learning on the job. There's lots of things I kind of hadn't done, but they were great. Simon and Craig were awesome.
So they were out billing,
they were
bringing in clients. You were like everything else.
Like everything
else. Were you
else.
doing any recruitment or management of clients or anything like that? No?
Not really, to be honest with you. No. They were so good at it. They've been doing that for a long time. That's not what they wanted me to do, to be honest. And then we started to grow. You know, like we started to do well. We had obviously the GFC came along, but we were okay there. We had a good contract base. We had the government contract that we were on, which was the biggest sort of Southern Hemisphere, and the government were always going to sort of spend when the market dipped.
The New South Wales government.
New South Wales government. That's a huge contract. So
I went out, joined Randstad in Melbourne. They won the Victorian government, so I did that. I was put on that team,
and that was decent margins.
Yeah.
It's not now, but it was.
There's only like 5 major tier 1 suppliers usually, isn't there?
There was quite a few in New South Wales, to be honest with you.
Melbourne Victoria had 5, and then there was tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, but Randstad were tier 1. So there's only like Hudson, Randstad, Hayes. There's like 5 of the big players.
It's a license to print money, and they just rolled.
Yeah.
I think that
They didn't give us a commission structure though, which was the way they did it.
Did they?
Because they were like, we've won the tender, not you. So they were like, just go and do deals for basically. We got like $100 a bonus or something. It was terrible. But because I was on a 457, I was new. I didn't know.
Yeah, you can't argue, can you? So that went really well. And then all of a sudden, we started to scale, and then we was like, okay, well, let's start to take this seriously. I think the biggest change that happened was that we hired a guy called Ted Bonnell, and he was an executive business coach.
Right.
And he worked for a company called Gazelles, run by Vern Harnish, which is follows something called the Rockefeller methodology of business. I think it's the hardest transition that most recruiters go from actually saying, look, I'm a really good recruiter, but now I need to change my skill set and learn how to run a business. And Ted was instrumental in everything that we did there. So it was, okay, let's look at the values. It's a bit of a pyramid, and at the base of the pyramid are the values for the business. These are so bloody important. And everyone kind of goes, well, you know, and that, unfortunately, is the attitude of a lot of co-founders I speak to. They don't understand how important they are. And I think part of it is that they forget what it's like to be an employee. Once you've been running a business for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, you forget what it's like to be an employee. Yeah. You lose that empathy for what's important to the people that work for you.
Of course, yeah.
So I think sort of understanding those values and then how you integrate the values into that business. Every small and large decision you make are based around those values. But when you don't live them, when you don't execute what you should do, this causes more problems than it solves. So the first part was like the values for the business. And then it's called a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, is the kind of where the business wants to be. It's big enough, it's scary enough, and it's far away enough that people can't say that you won't do it. So we sort of put this all together. And then it was looking at, okay, well, let's look at who we actually have in the business. And then we started looking at A players, A, B, and C players. And then we did, and again, I'd advise most recruitment co-founders and owners to kind of do this. Run through who are your A, B, and C players in your company as an exercise, and like ask the question, would you rehire them? But it's defining, well, what is an A player? An A player for me is that top 10% in the industry for the salary that you're paying them. You can't compare someone 30K and 100K.
No.
So it's finding out who's actually in your business is an A player. Who's a B player? A B player for me can be someone who's a little inconsistent, but they live the company values. They're an asset and a credit to the business. Yeah. Or it could be someone that's smashing targets, but they're kind of a little bit rogue. Yeah. They cause some problems. C players, ones that are off target and a bit of a pain. And we went through this really important exercise of grading everybody that we had in the business, working out who the A players were. And it isn't just the recruiters you do that for, it's everybody in the company, every position that you've got for the company. And it was surprising. You look at it, you go, it's the 80-20 rule. You've got 20% of your people in the business sort of doing 80%. And you start to dig into the numbers. You start to understand the numbers. We spent some time. I think most founders don't understand their numbers. They don't understand the difference between P&L and a cash flow forecast. No. They don't understand what's in their bank isn't what they can spend.
Yeah.
And that's not a judgment call.
No,
that's just
the fact. Yeah.
That's just the truth. Where it's sort of, you've been a really good recruiter.
So were you spotting this in the two guys then? Were you like...
No, I think it was in all of us, to be honest with you. And that's why Ted was so instrumental. Right. I've got a degree in accounting and finance. So I've got a reasonable... I didn't do very well at it, but I've got a reasonable sort of feel for numbers. And I enjoy looking at numbers, is kind of seeing the story that they tell. But all of us were aware that, there's a...
What were the symptoms that were that were in the business that you made to invest in that coach?
Good question. I think it was that we wanted to scale, that we really thought of like, we're not sure how to do this other than just going out and hiring people.
Yeah.
I think Simon's one of the smartest guys that I know. Very self-reflective. He's got a master's in English. He's a super smart guy. It was more him sort of saying, look, we don't know this stuff, so let's go out there. Let's find this. Yeah. So we interviewed quite a lot of people until we found Ted, and Ted just worked with us sort of, and he was patient. He understood us. But looking back, it was honestly the best thing that we did. So we were able to sort of really understand where the business was going, like a clear vision for the business that we could sell to people coming in. And in my role now, when I sit down with A players, and I'm very selective who I work with, because if that owner cannot articulate where this company is going to attract A players, and then complain, why can't we find these people? Well, because you can't sell the vision of the business, and this is such a problem that I find. And so, sort of having that sort of clear vision. And we became really confident.
So what was the impact then in getting clear on the vision?
Everyone knew their role. Everyone knew their role and responsibility. And I think the biggest thing that, I keep saying that, one of the really important things was understanding your role as a founder. And he'd say you've got 3 roles. One is you're a shareholder, one is you're a director, and one is you're an employee. You need to operate in that employee space for 90% of the time. And what happens is people come over the top and call the director card far too much. So we all had to sort of change the roles that we had in the business. Instead of all of us making these decisions, he said, we'll have a meeting to make a decision. It was, no. Simon's going to be the MD. Dan, you're going to be sales director. Craig, head of business development. And understanding the roles that you have and the day-to-day role that you have within the business. Again, it's just so important.
So you went from being operational to a sales director?
Yep.
So externally focused then?
No. Sort of just managing the team. Sort of.
Right.
I'd go out on client meetings. I'd be sort of managing the guys day-to-day, doing all the training, doing all the sort of onboarding.
And this was a 10-year journey then?
This was a 10-year journey.
And you stayed in Sydney the whole time?
I stayed in Sydney for 8 years, and then eventually I moved to Singapore.
Yeah, with the business?
With the business, yeah.
To open up a new office? Or?
Again, classic mistakes I think so many people make. One is we wanted to keep growing. We had 5 divisions in the end. We opened up account and finance, we opened up engineering, we had a search function, we had the government, we had technology, we had heads of everybody. We had like close to 50 people. We had 300 plus contractors. We had a training manager doing a training team. We got a brand new office. Paid ourselves too much money. And then I ended up moving to Singapore because we set up a Singapore operation. And again, I speak to so many founders. They want to go and open up in America. They want to open up in a different location.
Right, Singapore, yeah.
It's so easy to get wrong, and it can cost you an absolute fortune. And we got that wrong, and it cost us an absolute fortune. So eventually, I actually went out to Singapore to sort of write that. My wife was kind of ready to. She's from the UK. We had 2 children that were 40 months apart, and we were ready to sort of come closer to home, and it just felt.
It's only a few hours, but it's what is it, about 7-hour time?
It's a 7-hour trip from Australia to Singapore.
It's time difference wise, it's 7-8 hours ahead of England, isn't it? As opposed to that.
That's right.
9 to 11.
And it's one flight.
Yeah.
It just made a difference.
Yeah.
To feel it was more kind of
accessible,
closer to home. So yeah.
What do you think of Singapore to live when you compare it to Sydney and London?
I love Singapore.
Yeah.
The biggest difference was that I was working long hours. My wife was at home with 2 children, 14 months apart, no help. And when you're running a company, you're so committed to it.
Yeah.
There's times when I probably wasn't the greatest husband or dad because I'm so focused on the business.
Yeah.
I can kind of remember Emma at the door saying to me, "Please don't go into work."
Wow.
And I did. Not proud of it, but I could start to see this is taking a strain.
Cracks are appearing, yeah.
Yeah. And the move to Singapore was needed from a business perspective, but it was right for me as well. A move to Singapore meant that I had a live-in maid. Not that we wanted the maid to have anything to do with the children, but all the washing, ironing,
take
cooking,
away
cleaning, all that
admin
stuff. Emma's a great mum. She was involved with the schools. The schools out there are fantastic. The lifestyle's fantastic. The weather's amazing. It's hot. It's stuffy, but you kind of get used to it. There's an amazing expat community out there.
Yeah. Football as well, though, right?
Yeah, it's football. I didn't play too much football there, to be honest with you. And what I found out there was that a lot of, and the same in Dubai, a lot of, like, for someone that's trying to settle, is that when your wife takes the children to school, the friends that she makes, the husbands become your friends.
Right.
Because all of a sudden you're going to a barbecue on a weekend, and it's all the dads all kind of trudging along, and the networks that you got from that. And we're still friends with so many different people from them. Like these are sort of serious players. It's sort of a lot of work that I won was from
I bet.
those people. But for us, Singapore was a great move. We loved it. The schools were great. But the byproduct of coming to Singapore, whilst it was great for us, back in Sydney, cracks started to appear. And again, this is no one's fault. And there's kind of no sort of blame here. But over a period of time, people want different things. And when you've been working in a business for a long time, if you're not having those conversations with each other, what is it you want from the business? As you get older, as you have families, you have children, your priorities change. And alignment, you need to keep coming back to what each of you kind of wants from that business. And I think we just wanted a different direction, sort of in the end. And again, this is kind of some of the experience that when I'm speaking to younger founders, it's like you don't know the importance of a shareholder agreement.
No, until you need it.
Until you need it. I always sort of say to someone, it's like a prenup.
Yeah.
When you're in love with your wife and you're about to get married, you don't need anything. Not that I didn't have anything when I got married. My wife was earning more money than me. But when you're all rational and you're reasonable, that's the time to sort of work out what should be in the shareholder agreement if things don't work out. And you don't learn those lessons. You can be told them, no, we're fine. We're never going to fall out.
So where did that leave you then? Because it sounds like you only lasted a couple more years, right? At this point.
That's right. So we bought out Craig, and then myself and Simon got close to 2 trade sales. One, we'd signed heads of agreement. I flew in from Singapore, business, with the wife, signed the papers, heads of agreement done, everything, and then last minute.
Would that have been a life-changing amount of money for you both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he changed it last minute on arrival. Yeah. Cut it by about 30% and thought that we would just take it. And we were like, no. So
how did you react to that?
I was on the floor.
I would be.
I was on the floor. I was literally...
Because you mentally build up to something and you prepare
that's what
yourself.
He thought.
Yeah.
That's what he was counting on. And this person had bought a couple of companies in Australia in a similar way, but that were struggling. But we weren't struggling at that point. We were doing reasonably well. And he thought that he knew that I was going back to the UK. Emotionally, mentally.
So had you already agreed this with Simon then?
Yeah, I checked out.
You both sell and you're moving back?
I was moving back.
And you weren't going to be part of like a lock-in or anything?
No, Simon was going to be the lock-in. And then we're like, okay, fine. So it was one of the hardest things. My wife had to fly back to Singapore and I was left in Sydney. And that's a really good friend actually, called me up for a coffee. He gave me a couple of books to read that were really, really helpful. I was set. I'd sailed off into the sunset. I was returning to the UK. I'd had my 3rd child in Singapore. I said to my wife, "It's okay. We're going home now," because she was homesick. For her family. I was homesick. We're like, we're going home. We're going to be home with our family. We're going to take some time out.
Got money.
And that didn't happen. So we still went home. We went to live in Devon. And then randomly...
But what's going on with the business? Have you still got shares? And
yeah, I've still got shares now. I've still got shares, but Simon's now running it, and I'm just a shareholder.
Even today?
No.
No. So this is the time when you're in Devon.
This was the time that we were in Devon, and then we nearly sold again. We'd gone through all the due diligence with quite a large company that's well known. We were ready to go, and last minute Simon said, "I don't want to sell to them," because he'd have to work with them and be part of the earn out, and they structured it in a good way, but it was a longer term investment for Simon to be a partner with them as a part of the wider group.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I want to take it.
So I'll buy you out.
I'll buy you out. So I flew over there, and it took 10 minutes to kind of work through. We trust each other. We're still friends. He was over a month ago. We caught up, and Simon bought me out, and it was sort of tranche payments over like 3 years, I think it was. And I just took time out in Devon. I just took sort of 18 months out just to kind of...
Was it enough to stop forever or...?
No. But by the time you've not worked for a couple of years, by the time the tax man's come and, you buy yourself a house and, you kind of... It was a decent amount.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sort of cry poor on it at all. So we lived in Denver 18 months, which
How old are you at this point?
I'm about 38.
Yeah,
39.
My age now, and you got a lot of energy still. I imagine it. You're not ready to retire. At 38.
No, you're not. And we
three kids. Which
we lived in an amazing village.
Yeah.
Broad Henry. We stayed in this old vicarage. It was the biggest house you've ever seen. It was honestly, it's ridiculous.
You bought it or you rented?
No, we was renting it at the time. It was peanuts compared to London, or it was nothing. And we had one pub, one church, one school. I could walk the kids to school through the churchyard. The school was between 5 and 11.
Oh, amazing!
And for 2 years, I was walking the kids to school, and I absolutely loved it. And then my wife was sat there. She goes, "I'm bored."
What were you doing all day?
I was doing a few things on property. I was going to property meetups. So I kind of dabbled in that a bit. I did a few like rent to rents and a few buy to lets. I was kind of just sort of
and just
trying to keep myself busy. I loved a pub lunch. Going down.
A lot of people tell me that you can drink a lot more. I don't know about you, but it's quite easy when you've got a bit of money and you're not working to just go, well, I'll have a glass of wine. I mean, it can spiral.
What it can do. I mean, the kids kind of kept you young having to drive, because it was a half-hour round trip just to get a takeaway. To be honest with you, and Em's like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
What should we do? And then she's like, Dubai. I was like, okay. And then I started applying for jobs, and I saw a job, and I flew out there with Emma. Mum came down to have the kids, and there's a guy called Spencer Lodge. He runs quite a few large companies out there, and he's got one of the biggest, like a podcast. He does one of the biggest podcasts in Dubai, and it was to work for him. And I went there, and I had this present. He wasn't sort of expecting me to have this presentation done. He's like, Jesus, okay. And he phones me up straight after the interview, and he says, right, come back. I want you to meet my wife, because I said, this is what I'm going to need to come out here. And it was all systems go. And then I went home to Emma. I said, right, this is going amazing, that this is going to happen. We walked back to the hotel. We were in a taxi. Phone goes. Ask my sister. I won't answer it. And I was listen to the message. You need to phone home. And those are messages.
You know the tone as well.
I don't know what I'm going to hear, but life's going to be different. And life was different. My dad had died in an accident. So straight home. And that sort of put the pause on Dubai for 3 or 4 months whilst we collected ourselves and kind of worked out, helped my mum, my family,
Where are they based, your family? Are they near Devon or not?
No, my mum's in Worthing.
Worthing.
Where I kind of grew up. My sister's in Worthing, and my brothers at the time were both in London, although my other brothers moved to Brighton, so he's close.
I'm interrupting today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Atlas, the only AI-first recruitment platform on the market. Now, imagine you had a genuine assistant following you around, listening to everything you said on the phone or in meetings, and then doing all the admin for you that you don't want to do. Well, that is actually possible now through Atlas CRM. It's the only platform with fully integrated AI, so there's no note-taking whatsoever and no need to buy any additional software. Now, they've got so many amazing features, specifically customize and integrate this platform easily, okay? They've got templates that can be adjusted to fit any document requirement and integrate seamlessly across Atlas platform for easy recall. Okay, so Atlas is brand new to the market and launching so rapidly. For the first 200 members, they are offering what's called a founder's license, okay? And the founder's license is going to be a 40% discount for life. Okay, and it's only for the first 200. Now, if you want to be in the first 200, you're listening to this episode through The Rag, you're going to have a great chance. Go to www.recruitwithatlas.com/The Rag and sign up on that page. All right, let's get back to the show.
So and I think sort of 3, 4, 5 months later, Spencer reached back out and said, "What's going on?" I said, "Yeah, I'm doing okay." He goes, "Why don't you fly out?" So I flew out again. And I did some consulting for him. And I was there like 3 or 4 months on my own. And was back.
What does this guy do? He's running recruitment company.
He runs a financial brokerage, wealth management, sorry. And he's got software companies.
It's not a recruitment company?
No. And then he wanted me to kind of look after the recruitment for the whole.
So it's like an in-house recruitment role,
it was. And it was interesting. So I worked in Dubai, was there for 2 years.
With that guy?
Yeah.
And the family moved out?
Put them in school.
Where did you live?
In the Green Community West.
Right.
Which was a little out of the way, but it was just beautiful. Like 4-bed house with en suites. The kids still talk about swimming pools, that expat lifestyle, living made.
You've literally done Sydney, Singapore, Dubai. They're like the 3 for me that I would, they're the only 3 cities I'd want to actually probably live in. Maybe, I don't think I would do America, but Austin always, in America.
Austin, a lot of people talk about Austin.
Yeah, there's something about Austin I always hear, but them 3 are the ones that I think are the only attractive ones for me. You've done all of them.
I feel blessed, to sort of, it's hard work when you first get there, just to settle, to make networks. And I think a big part of the success we've had is like my wife. She's just a natural networker. She's enough fun for both of us. She just makes great friends.
Yeah.
And their partners are sort of.
They always choose different.
They're good blokes. That all of a sudden I've got friends and networks as well. So yeah, I've been very blessed. But after time in Dubai, it just felt. It gets expensive when you've got 3 kids in school.
Yeah.
It was time to come home. It was time to get a front door that I had, that my wife had, that my kids could call someone home. Because the kids are moving all the time.
Yeah.
They're going to 3 or 4 different countries, different schools, and they've adapted amazingly well. Exactly. It was like, okay, we now need to go home and settle. We came back to the UK, and it was my wife's turn to start working. She hadn't worked for 10 years whilst we were raising.
So when was this? When you finally got back?
This was 2017, I think it was.
When I started Hoxel.
Yeah. So it's a while ago, and Emma went back to work, and she's a pharmaceutical rep. She's amazing. She's like been top salesperson 3 of the last 4 years. She's been
she's
nominated.
got that recruiter element about her, hasn't
she?
Well,
she was a recruiter. Yeah, she was.
So
it was my turn to take a bit of a step back. She got her career back on track. She's doing fantastically well.
What did you stay at home dad time?
I stayed at home for a while, which I enjoyed it. I'm sure the kids enjoyed it. It's hard work, jeepers. It's hard work. And then I met a friend who runs a digital agency in Worthing called the company's Fresh Egg. And he goes, Dan, I'm thinking of starting an internal recruitment function. He goes, all my clients are scaling digital, but they're building it in-house.
Yeah.
I think there's something here where we can help them scale out, build out. Would you come and have a chat? So I went to work for him to build like this internal recruitment function, build a contracting function for them. Outside IR35 happened as well. They were perfectly placed to.
Yeah.
So I was there for close to 2 years through early parts of COVID. Absolutely loved it. Great company. And then Adam asked me to go and meet somebody. He goes, can you go and meet this guy, Steve Rackley? He's setting up something called Silicon Brighton. And he's asked if we can go along. Yeah, sure. I've gone along. I'm in the coffee shop. It's a half-hour conversation that we should have had. 3 hours later, I'm still there. Steve runs James Chase,
right,
which is where I went to work.
This is another recruitment business now.
Yeah, so I was MD for this company for 3 years in the end. This is where I was like for the last 3 years. And Steve, we just hit it off straight away. A real entrepreneur, fantastic recruiter. He set up something called Silicon Brighton, which is, I think it's about 20 at the last count, technology user groups in Brighton. That's
his community, effectively.
That's his community that he built. And then we hired someone to come and run it, Grace to come and run it. Just a fantastic initiative.
And he got recruitment business from that.
He did, yeah. And he's just a real entrepreneur. And so more conversations I had through COVID, I did some consulting with them. And I was like, oh, there's a bit of an itch here. So fast forward, I was like, I think there's an elephant in the room here. I've still got a fire in the belly.
So you're running his business?
So I then came on as MD, and he was sort of working in the business with the other partner, Phil. So I was that third person.
Yeah, you've played that role again.
Yes, and it's the hardest role to hire for, and it's the hardest role to play.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like I said before, most recruitment owners or founders, they've got this drive. They're this A-type. They're super capable, super smart, super hardworking. All the attributes you need to kind of get you to 10, 15.
Yeah.
And then 10, 15. And so you think, actually, I want to bring somebody else in because I want to scale the business.
Get to 30, 40, 50, whatever.
And again, you just end up... And again, we did some amazing things there. Like we started the outside IR35 consultancy, which is probably the biggest part of the business now. When IR35 changed, there was an opportunity to set up that consultancy. One of the other partners had a large client that was looking to do something, and kind of all three of us kind of worked together tirelessly to sort of put this in play. And we sort of hired a program manager.
So it was like a statement of work type
statements
project,
of work. Yeah, we sort of used law speak for the contracts. It was statements of work, all the different assurances we had to go through.
Yeah, and it's time and materials and stage gates and all. It's a lot different than.
And you have to get it right. So this was a real big investment.
The risk is on you, isn't it?
The risk is on you, and that was great. That was just lots of fun. And Steve's he's got an entrepreneurial brain. He's just great at pulling things together. As a team, we kind of worked on that, and that became really successful. Phil had the main clients as well. He was very much client focused.
And again, you're building the team together.
And I'm building the team. But to be honest with you, during that time, pretty much when I started, that's when, I think we spoke about this before, sort of a few troubles at home for me. A few challenges with my eldest. COVID was rough for her. She was diagnosed with autism. Because girls mask. Yeah. When they get to like 12, it gets harder. And and bless her, she's been through 4 high schools.
Yeah.
It was the hardest thing that I've done. Hardest thing that my wife's done, and she was amazing. To navigate that, to be that support that she needed for us, because she went through it. It was tough. It was tough. There were times when we would, just sleep downstairs to kind of make sure she's okay. I would drive her for hours because she couldn't sleep. That's when I stopped.
So was that how it started? Was it around sleep then? Was it?
Oh, it just, looking back, it was probably kind of always there.
Yeah.
But over COVID, when they go to high school, that transition from a girl to a woman, and
my stepdaughter's 12 this month, and she's changing so much. Like
Is she?
As in, yeah, her attitude is just so unpredictable, and she's not that, like, she's losing that innocence. She wants to, like, challenge a lot, and I can just see my stepson's, like, he's where they both were, and he's not. He's 10, and he's still, like, I don't know. He's just affectionate. He's open. She's just kind of like, everything's guarded. Everything's got a hidden meaning. I'll be honest, I'm struggling with it right now. Like, it's tough, but I mean, there's no diagnosis or anything like that. It's just more that age. So if you're dealing with that, plus there's a, neurodivergent.
It's the hardest thing to deal with.
Then you're trying to run someone else's business.
And then you're trying to get into work every day.
And were you living close to the office and stuff?
It was on a good run. So I would start in the office at 7 a.m.
Hmm.
And I never missed a day.
No.
Never had a day sick. It's just not in me. It's like most people. It's just isn't like that. And we'd work Monday, Wednesday, Friday from the office. I didn't miss a day, but did it have an impact for sure? And then you feel quite guarded. You feel like you can't talk to the other partners about that. That's on me. That's kind of not on them at all. That they wouldn't have been open to help out.
You don't want to bring your shit to the door.
You don't want to bring and I think that's the hardest thing about leadership is that consistency. And I'm pretty sure that most people wouldn't have had a few people I got close with at work I would kind of talk to a little bit.
Yeah.
But on the whole, people wouldn't know. And that.
How many people was in the team? The whole team?
We got about 23, 24 in total.
Mm.
So it was growing, it was scaling. The first part of the market was great, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Sort of post-COVID.
Yeah, 21, 22.
Yeah, it was a great market. So yeah, that was a challenge for me. But fast forward now, she's
How old is she now?
She's 17. She's at college. She's a resident now, so she lives away, and she's just doing fantastic.
Is it like a live-in college? Is it
in Plumpton?
Very specific place.
Near Lewis. It's an equine college. Not that she's doing equine. She's doing adventure. So she's in Wales this week. She sent me a photo from Snowdonia. It looks absolutely incredible, and she's grown. She's grown.
To get her in a college with this, like a live-in college, that must be quite rare, isn't it?
Then there aren't too many.
It's like a boarding school type situation.
Yeah, it's like a uni. It's like halls.
Yeah.
It's
earlier.
And she loves it. She made amazing
I
friends.
That age.
Oh, so she comes home on a Thursday or Friday. I go and pick her up, dumps all her washing, and I take her back on a Sunday. And she's just doing amazing now.
Are you building a different relationship with her now as well? Like,
100%. Oh, I mean, it was tough on her first and foremost, of course. Massively tough on my wife. But they're getting on great.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, we had my mum's birthday the other day. They both had a couple of drinks, kind of listening to them.
Oh wow!
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that sort of has been a huge factor this year and last year. Sorry. So it just got to the point where I didn't feel I could give James Chase, Stephen, Phil like 100%.
When was that? When did you make that decision?
This time last year, really. To be honest with you. And they were great. They were really gracious on it, to be honest with you. There was no falling out. There was no.
You leave the business in a better place than you found it?
I think so.
I think that's the litmus test, isn't it?
I think so. Didn't quite do what I wanted to do there, if I'm honest. And that's on me. I think it's hard that third person going in, and I speak to a load of founders that are looking for this person. Yes. They're looking for this person. But like I said to you before, if you don't understand the roles you have in the business, just because someone comes in as that third person, that MD, your role is a specific role within that business. You can't wear that board hat unless you're in the boardroom. You need to sort of have that level of accountability. And it's a really great exercise that we did with Ted. I get loads of people to do that I speak to. It's like, go through, tell me who is accountable for sales, ultimately accountable. Who's accountable for marketing? Who's accountable for operations, for HR, for people, for hiring, for finance? And most go, oh, both of us. If two people in charge, no one's in charge.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
you kind of need to make sure that you've got some really clear accountabilities and what are your specific roles. And unfortunately, once you run and again, this isn't about where I work, this is my experience of speaking to people now, is that they can't lose the bald hat. They can't come out. They keep coming over the top.
That's my problem. I've always
They can't delegate.
Yeah.
And again, but I think it's knowing self. This is the most important thing. If that's you and you can't delegate because you like to control everything, then just run a really lean operation.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a lot more profitable. And the amount of company co-founders I've spoken to that give their life to this, they've lost their marriages, they're not making great money.
No, they're not.
And they're in tax debt, they're in all sorts of bother. But what they fundamentally are amazing recruiters. And they could run a 3-4 person operation and bill £1 million.
Easy. And take 60 to 70% home.
But it's an ego thing.
But you do that for a few years and it's life changing. I keep saying this to people, like, you save $500,000 a year for 4 years, you've got £2 million. Like, that's £2 million that you've probably paid your mortgage off anyway, or you've already got money. It's not like you're starting from a base. You're earning a great salary too. Like, you're talking about millions of pounds here that gives you time and freedom, and without that constant, like without that call you had when the guy lands and fucking cuts you 30% off on the day you're exiting. Like, so we can get into this. We've got time. Talk to me about, like, when did you make the decision on Inside Recruitment? And because it feels like you're placing yourself. It feels like you found, and I completely, like, I've done over 300
that's
episodes.
interesting. That's interesting.
You're finding for businesses the guy that you were. So you're uniquely positioned to do this because you've done it multiple times. And you're dealing with candidates who are going to go and do that job. Yeah,
that's happening more and more, and I'm loving that.
But was that the idea to begin with?
That was. I mean, I've kind of had a few pivots. This has been like a research year.
You said, like, 1 minute you were doing Sydney.
I was like, no. But over the time, is that I'm working with some great clients.
Sorry to pause. Why did you start the business in the first place? Why did you not go and get another job?
Because I wanted to work for myself.
Right.
I couldn't work for anybody else.
You've had enough
I didn't
of that.
want business partners.
Yeah.
Because I've been that third person twice. And I think the lesson keeps coming back to you is that partners are strong personalities. I'm a recovering people pleaser, probably.
Yeah.
Which is why I adapt to that role really well. Short term, medium term. But I was like, I need to do this myself. Because it's so frustrating. So often I'd like, this is what we need to do, but I'm spoke down. I'm overruled by the two.
Yeah.
And it came to the point where, look, I need to own this myself. I need to stand on my own 2 feet. I'm good enough to do it. I have sort of self-doubt for sure. You know that from some of our conversations that we've had. But I've done my 10,000 hours.
I felt like you had way too much self-doubt based on the background you've got. Like, I was so impressed with your story, and then to hear where you felt you were, I was like, a bit like that. But you explained that guy on the plane who thought he was getting fired. That is exactly still in you, isn't it?
It's in me for sure. But do you know what? The last 3 or 4 months, I've started to really enjoy what I do. I'm starting to work senior leadership roles. I'm starting to have the type of conversations that I can add the value to. I phoned up a co-founder, and he hired. We put a whole leadership team into this company. Head of delivery, head of sales, 3 division managers, and now we're sort of filling out the teams, which has been great to work. And I've been partnering with this company on a retained plus fee, and we're just working collaboratively, and there's a respect there. And so I phoned the co-founder up because I'm now working with his head of delivery that he's hired, so I'm not having as much conversation with him. And he was a little short in some of his emails, so I thought, so I phoned him up. This is last week. I said, "You all right?" He goes, "Yeah." "Why?" I said, "Just checking." And he goes, No. You've got me intrigued now. Why are you phoning me up? I said, because I'm dealing with your head of now, more and more. I'm not dealing with you, and I've been where you are. I was like, just remember, your value to the business now is allowing the people you've hired the freedom to execute on what is it you want them to do, but also that you can then transition from working in the business day to day, all those all those key decisions that you used to be involved with, to working strategically on the business, which is going to get exciting for you. And he said to me, were you in the meeting with my chairman? Because it's just literally, they've hired a chairman as well. He goes, he's just had that same conversation with me. So I'm able to kind of understand firsthand how those emotions, how they feel. And the more stuff that I'm planning on that I've got in the pipeline is hiring this third person. And again, I am so well placed. If there's two or three co-founders looking to hire an MD, hire a third person in, there's as much work that you need to do with them.
Yeah, I think it's not just a recruitment fee,
as you need to do with hiring the right person.
Yeah, so it's not just a recruitment fee.
No,
not at all.
I was speaking to someone.
Do you charge for that work though? Do you have a consultancy?
No, I don't.
Fee?
I'm just finding my feet at the moment.
Yeah, you could do. You could have a two sides of a coin fee, like.
I think it'll go there. I saw
MD ready kind of thing, like.
Yeah.
Get MD ready because.
That's really interesting. I saw I think it was Alex Elliott posted the other day that he was setting up a consultancy for those 2-3 co-founder mid-size kind of businesses. That's great, and I think there's a real space for those. There's a real space there, but you've got to hire. You've got to hire into those companies, and it's sort of, I'd really enjoy sort of that type of stuff where I'm working with I'm kind of working with the co-founders to sort of hire that initial MD, then the leadership team.
What level will you go down to before you're like, this isn't for me?
At the moment, I've just sort of stayed at principal kind of level, to be honest with you. I am working, so I've literally just signed today a 2-month retainer with one company that I've been working with to hire out some of the team. They've asked me to help hire out some of the team of the managers that I've put in there.
How are you finding that? Obviously, you did that internally for these businesses anyway, but
yeah,
a lot of recruiters who move into rec to rec are like the quality of the candidate conversation and the flakiness of the people. The dropout rates, like it's just not the same level as maybe in technology or whatever industries they were before.
I'm having to learn to recruit again.
Yeah.
Because I've been telling people how to do it for a long time. I'm now having to kind of relearn how to do that myself. At the senior end, it's great.
Yeah.
It's really good. There's really decent conversations that you're having. There's less ego. You can understand how, and I think it's understanding how to interview.
Yeah.
As well. So most people can't interview well. They think they can. It goes, there is like a gut feel, but success leaves clues. And when we were working with Ted, we did something called what was it called? My brain's going to go dead now, isn't it? It was a hiring strategy that we started using, top grading. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
And in there's something called threat of reference check, or FORK, which is fantastic. So when you're interviewing someone, it's understand that success leaves clues. And those clues are, so if I was speaking with you and I'm looking back through what you build, as an A player in that business, would you have any issue with me speaking with your past manager?
No.
No. A players never. Number one.
Yeah.
Would you, if this goes well, 2 or 3 weeks later, I offer you and you accept, are you happy for me to speak to your past manager? And
100%, yeah.
And who is it? Okay, so ask that question first.
I always used to say, when I speak to your previous manager, will you
actually write the name down.
Yeah.
The actual right way to do it is to write the name down and check the spelling.
Yeah.
So and even if you know how to spell it, is that with an I or a Y?
Yeah.
So you check and you write that down.
So you're making them conscious.
You make them conscious.
And when I speak to them.
What
do you think they're going to say?
What are they going to say were your key strengths? What are they going to say? And again, what are they going to tell me that you weren't so good or areas of development?
And you're aware. You're hoping they've got the self-awareness to be able to.
This is exactly it. If someone's
not turn a negative into a positive. I hate leaving a job unfinished and all that shite.
So that's a load of rubbish. So again, by doing that threat of reference check and doing that in the right way, it's a real practical way of sort of
weeding out.
And what are they going to score you out of 10? And you can't say 7 because everyone's got 7. So if it's an 8, then they've done. So again, you're just looking for, can I speak to your past people that you work for? What they can say that's good about you? Are you reflective enough to understand what what your weaknesses are. Why did you leave that job? I was headhunted. I want to start my own business. If you got someone, I got made redundant 3 times, you're going to start to have, so success leaves clues. And I think it's just, and again, if you're doing those senior leadership roles, tell me about the team. Tell me the people in your team when you started. Grade them. Tell me the health of that team when you left. So you're seeing whether someone's, oh yeah, the team was flying, they were making loads of money by the time I left. So again, it's
how much are you open to like the honesty around what they're not good at and that they're aware of it but they want to work on it, for example? Like if someone's got 80%, but they're like, there's 20%, I need help.
That's great.
Yeah. And do you think your customers are as receptive?
100%. 100% they're great. No one's perfect.
No.
And I'm really honest with the people that I speak to. I say, look, and I'm going to touch wood here. So far, every single person I've placed is still there.
Yeah.
That's a curse now, isn't it? But again, recruitment's not rocket science. My first training was done by Tony Byrne. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tony Byrne.
I know the name.
Yeah, so he was like, it's American. He had these big braces. And some really simple questions. It's like opportunity to type. So it's understanding you don't match CVs and specs. Just when you're working closely with the client, you understand what the opportunity is within that business. You understand the people, what's good about it, what's not so good, what the challenges are going to be. And when you speak with someone, just tell me what you're looking for. Then just shut up and listen. Probe. And if someone is not describing what it is that your opportunity is, then they're not right. They're not going to stay.
But also, like you said, one of the biggest problems is the client isn't set to explain what they want in a way that you're often comfortable to go and find. If they can't clearly articulate the opportunity in their own business, you're setting yourself up for failure.
You are. So far, I've been super selective.
Yeah.
Who I work with.
Will you tell them that? Just don't think it's right.
If I can't help them, I'll say I can't help.
How busy how many jobs do you want on your desk at any time at this point?
I've got too many at the moment, to be honest with you. And these are just so much of it's been repeat business or referrals. A chairman that I'm working with that I know just keeps referring me work as well because he likes what I do.
Yeah.
He goes, keep making me look good.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, great. So again, it's now evolving where I'm working with leadership teams. I'm helping build this stuff out. I'll be working with you guys and Bav, to sort of like get my presence because I don't have any presence. I'm literally invisible.
Well, I said that. I think you're like a best kept secret, and that's why I wanted you on the show. I'm like, I think you've got so much to get out of you, and it's having the framework and the process to do that in an authentic way that we obviously can provide you with. But I feel people will enjoy your style because to me you just come across so genuine. You're not trying to.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
You do. I don't. Yeah. If I heard you were like you backhanded someone or did something, I would be gobsmacked kind of thing. Whereas some people you meet, you're like you can tell they're a good operator, but you almost know that there'll be some things they'll do. And in a sector that needs one, the bar raising, two, everyone knows everyone. You can't afford it anymore. You can't afford to be like that.
It's such a small world. The amount of times I was in Dubai and someone wanted a reference, and it was someone I used to sort of know in Sydney on George Street. Is that Dan? It's such a small world, as you know, and I'm excited for this kind of next part, and I feel
break it. What does a day look like for you? Like now that you've got this new business, what's different compared to when you worked for the other businesses when you were an employee as an MD? What GM? What's your day look like?
I'm sleeping better. Yeah. I'm a lot more relaxed for sure. I'm up early. I'm always up early. I get out. I walk the dog. My wife will kind of get the kids to school. And I like starting early. I've got an office at home, but I've also been going into an office as well in Worthing. There's like a shared space that I kind of go into 2 or 3 days a week, which is great. I've been spoiled a little bit because there's not much business development, to be honest with you. It's going out to see clients that understand what they're looking for.
Is it finding the you've been struggling with getting responses from the talent?
It's always good. It's finding good, isn't it? It's finding excellent. It's finding that top 10%. Because I say to my clients that you're not going to get many from me, and they're actually okay with that. Because if you put like a B player in, you're just going to create so many problems for yourself, and it's my brand, it's my reputation. And if you're working with average companies, great. Then put average people into average companies because they'll fit. I remember speaking to a sales guy. He's like, "Yeah, I've got a team of 10." I was like, "Okay, classic Tony Byrne. Tell me why someone who's happily and successfully employed and working for a competitor leave where they are and come and work for you." So, if you can't articulate that, you can't share that vision, if you can't sell that, and there needs to be a level of confidence that the clients I'm working with at the moment, I know if I put someone in front of them, I'm excited because they're going to execute. They're ambitious, they're smart, their story's fantastic, it's true, they're going to treat them right. I'm going to be able to look them in the eye when I go and see the client in the office. And it can change a company when you hire that right person. I was working with someone, and he asked for my help. There's a lot of tire kickers out there, to be honest with you. Can you help? Oh, I found someone. So in the end,
do you charge retainers?
Yeah. Just a small retainer, like
just
$4K, just a commitment fee.
But a lot of people say retained in rec to rec is a problem. It's a noose around your neck that you don't need because it's all candidate. It's just a pure candidate. But again, that's maybe when they're going down the volume play a bit lower down the food chain.
It depends who the client is.
Yeah.
If you're working with an average client, trying to get A players to an average client, they're paying average money, average commission in a sector that's not growing.
Yeah, true.
They don't have a story. But when you're working with some really exciting companies, you work with leaders that are sort of ambitious, and you're kind of looking for those people. And I think that's part of what I enjoy is that when I'm speaking to senior people, trying to find them a job, it's a different conversation. I'm having a different conversation with them. I'm able to break down what they're looking for and what the company offers. Because it's such an important conversation is how do you retain top talent in your business when everyone's after the top 10%, aren't they? It's like with, if you think yourself, Sean, is there anything that your company could have done? You're top biller there, you're there for 5 years, one of the first employees. Is there anything they could have done to have kept you?
Yeah, they could have. They definitely could have understood what I wanted. They could have asked me more questions about where I was heading in life. They could have. I mentioned it on a previous podcast I recorded.
Okay.
It was like I was probably I was in two minds as to what I wanted to do. Did I want to just be a super biller? I felt like I was just getting to my strengths where I was doing like 700, and then they're like, right, you now need to be a manager.
That's impressive.
But I'm like, I could have gone to 1.5, I think. I could have been a 2 million. I genuinely believe I could have been. I feel like I had the skills, I had the experience, I had everything to just go to the next level. Or I could have been all in. Like, I'm a big Man City fan, and I think like the Guardiola. I always remember Guardiola went on and had that year out between Barca and Bayern when I was in that manager role. And I remember thinking, a bit like you've done, to be fair, like what an incredible way to live where you could go into a business for 4 or 5 years, build something, take some time out, and go again in a different part of the world. Whereas I think when you're a super biller, you're not doing that because you're absolutely chained. I was Lloyd's of London insurance market, walking the gherkin. I was fucking London forever. Whereas in that role, I could have gone to Dubai. I could have gone to Singapore. I could have done what you've done and moved around and built amazing things and earned incredible money. And so, but they never asked me any of that. They didn't want to know anything. They didn't ask me a single thing. They just said, I want you to have 400 contractors. They were like, we had 150. When I left, I got it to 150 as a group, and they were like, we want you to have 400. Not, do you want to have 400? And then I'd say, well, what's in it for me? And they'd laugh, and they'd be like, well, you're earning 250K now. I'm like, yeah, but what's in it? If we get to 400, what is in it for me? And they couldn't answer the question. So I was like, so you give me an outcome of a goal that you're excited by, that's clearly going to make a lot of money, but you can't. And I love the guy. I've got loads of respect for Stephen Barnaby, but they missed a massive trick. And they might say, look, you were never capable of being a shareholder or whatever. And they didn't see that in me, which is fine too. But there was a gap. There was a big gap between what they wanted. Up until the point where I was billing big, we were on the same trajectory. We were both going in the same direction. And the second that they went, we want you here without consultation, I went along with it. But then it's like train tracks, just going 1 degree out every week. Before you know it, you're there. You're miles apart.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. It was only a slight degree of... They say a plane, if it moves 1 degree, end up in like Tokyo from bloody Brazil.
I like that.
And it felt like that for me. There was no questions. There was no genuine care as to what I wanted. And that they're probably still happy with what they got out of it, to be honest. But that's the reason. That's the way they might have kept me, if they'd have kept me on the journey and actually thought about and I might have gone along with what they wanted had I felt part of it, but I didn't.
I think it's crazy, and I see so many companies where I think you did a podcast the other day, and there was some chap, I can't remember his name, where he was like the main biller for the company. It's like, and the owner's living overseas. I mean, why are these people not making this person a significant equity shareholder in that business, keeping them in the business? Because it's so hard to,
to replace them, it's not even worth it, is it? It's like
you're not just replacing someone like that. You're not. And I think those are the kind of challenges where you've got to be working with, got to be having those conversations to kind of lock those. But I don't know. I mean, I'd listen to, my first recruitment job in Sydney, you're going to be a shareholder, you're going to get an EMI. I don't think it's worth anything, to be honest with you. So,
but when you're talking about that leadership level, when you talk about the top people, you need to have a vision that you're like, look, you're part of this now. This is what it's going to look like. It needs to be concrete. It needs to be exciting. It needs to be, even if it is an annual dividend, it could just be that there's an annual profit share annually. It doesn't have to be equity.
No, it doesn't have to be.
It could be you're going to get 100K a year on top of your salary if we hit this bonus. Like, there's so many things you can do to get someone way bought into what you're doing on a level that they'll never be as a pure employee.
100%. You got to get them locked in. That leadership team. It's short-sighted. And I think that sort of, if you are looking to scale, that is the skill set that you have to learn. That's the outside help that you need to kind of get people in to kind of that core leadership team. And the companies I'm working with are, they've got their EMIs in place. They've got an event in 5 years. They're honest, they're upfront, they're excited about it, and they've built this leadership team to execute on that. And that's exciting. But most people just kind of, it's just a carrot. Oh, we're doing EMI. And 6 months later, you haven't done it.
No.
A year later, you haven't done it. That's so poor from an employee perspective. Again, I think that's the part of the...
So here's my final question for you.
Yeah, sure.
When you go into a business, not the candidate side, the business, to understand whether you should work with them or not because you believe you can represent them and find the talent, what are the questions that you'd ask, or the factors you're looking for? What's in the business that you're looking for that suggests it's a tick box? What do you need to see?
First and foremost, when I meet the co-founders, I need to like them.
Yep.
I need to build a rapport with them. I need to feel that there's a trust, there's an openness, that they're sort of going to value what I actually say. I think there needs to be the confidence that I have that when I sit someone in front of them, that they can sell their business, they can sell their vision. Because there's no point putting great candidates in front of someone if they can't execute on that. So those are kind of like the really important ones. And they've got just a really clear vision of where they're going, that they're self-reflective, that they understand the mistakes that they made, they understand the challenges that they kind of face as people, because that sort of A-player strong person that's not going to get out of the way because they haven't done that self-work, or they're just unaware of that this is going to be a problem. You are literally on a hiding to nothing.
Yeah.
You're literally on a hiding to nothing with that. Sector, make sure it's growing. I think I saw a quote from Mark Kern the other day, is that, an average recruiter will outperform a brilliant recruiter if the sector that they work in is booming. So you just, make sure you're operating somewhere that's making money. Make sure you're operating somewhere.
So you're attaching yourself to success.
100%.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Dan, we've run out of time, but I want to say thank you for your openness. I think it's been a patient story. There's loads more we could have unpacked. I don't think we've even touched the surface on some of these things, but I think there's so many people listening to this show that are in one of the boats that you've been in. They're either they want to be that third person, they are that third person, they're one of the founders, and we both know this is like a replication game. Everywhere you look, you meet two guys who've been top billers who come together, and me and Amma were that. It's just non-stop, the same problems left, right, and centre. And I think I really like the proposition you've put together, and I hope people reach out to you off the back of this. If people just want to pick your brains on that final bit, or whether they should even explore getting that third person, is it okay just to drop your LinkedIn?
100%. Yeah. 100%. No, I really appreciate your time, Sean.
Yeah.
It's been great.
No, I want to get you on again in the future.
No, I've really enjoyed
12 to 18 months.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And let's see how the industry's evolved, because there's a lot coming. There's AI, there's all sorts of disruption. We're not going to go into it now, but what I love about you, the final thing I want to say to you is, I think I'm on this journey now already, is simplicity. The complexity of what you've probably ran and managed and worked in, I don't think is there anymore. You've got this simple model. It's you've got a laptop and a phone. You know what the problem is. You know what you're trying to find. Commercially, it's simple. I just think it's great, and more people should be thinking. Just because you could doesn't mean you should, and adding more layers doesn't always make you happier. Or, do you know what I mean? Like, I say this all the time: do less better. Just fucking do less things better. More people did that, we'd be a better place, a better industry.
Yeah, I think we would. But I think when someone starts out, they just want to grow. They want to grow, and they want to grow, and they want to grow, and they want to sort of. I can remember when we moved office, this beautiful office with showers and big kitchen and 5 divisions. But my gosh, the headaches. You think that's what you want, but I'm a lot happier now, working for myself. And it's the same problems. They just repeat. It's the same problems that people face. So yeah, if anyone wants to have a chat, very happy to do so.
Top man.
Thank you, Sean.
Pleasure.
Thank you as always for listening to today's show. I truly hope that you got value from it. Honestly, it's the only reason I take time every week to ensure that my audience, you guys, future and existing recruitment owners, you're learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. And today's episode is brought to you by my business, Hoxo. I'm the CEO and founder, and we're on a mission to help brand recruitment agencies and their people better. I want to help people have the tools to stand out in the most competitive markets in the world. So I'll see you again next week with another episode. Catch you soon.